Welcome to Stop Wasting Your Wine, a wine review podcast where we waste our wine so you don't have to. On this episode, we have a conversation with
Anthony Dale from Fatherhood Wines.
Welcome back, everyone. Aaron here at the Stop Wasting Your Wine HQ, and I am joined once again by two of the most accomplished guys I know, Colin and Joel. How are you guys?
Doing very well. Very, very sweet of you to say. I guess I do feel a little bit accomplished. I think I woke up in time to make some breakfast for the family this morning. I got to the emails before 10 a.m. So yeah, I think I did pretty well today.
Yeah, I mean,
nice.
Yeah, we do a weekly podcast. That's an accomplishment, right? So
Yes.
there we go.
Yeah.
That's not
We
bad.
haven't missed a week yet. Through holidays, through sickness and in health, we've done it all. It's like we're married.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
No, I feel accomplished. I've gotten the kids out to school every day this week without forgetting anyone's lunch or pillows.
Nice.
I forgot Parker's bedding because he has bedding that has to go to school every Monday. And I forgot it one Monday. And I was like, you have backup, right? And the teacher was like, no. And it's a health code violation if you doesn't have bedding. I had to run home and get it, like miss my train. So, but today, this week, accomplished. I am accomplished. Colin, are you accomplished?
Yes. No, I'm feeling pretty accomplished in general, but probably not nearly as accomplished as our amazing guest this week. I mean, Anthony.
What do you mean?
Anthony is just an absolute incredible human being, juggling, it seems like 1,000 different things at one time.
Well, does he have kids that he has to get out to school every day?
He does 3 of them, yes.
Oh, he has more kids than we do.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
That's
wow.
right. More
Got it,
kids
got
than we do.
Oh boy.
More kids than we do.
Go on.
Let's see, what else? He runs a wine brand.
You mean like his own wine brand? Like he has his own?
He has his own
Brand
wine
of
brand.
wine.
Like he works for someone else that owns a brand.
No. He runs
no,
his own
his
wine
brand.
brand. That's
Oh.
right. That's right.
Wow.
He has his own brand.
He has his own
Okey
brand.
dokey.
Yes.
Go on.
Let's see. Winemaking facility. He was a Marine. He's
Okay.
opening a wine bar.
Oh, yeah, he's opening a wine bar in like some small town out west, right?
No, DC wine bar.
Wow.
Washington D.C.
That's right. I'm trying to think of the other DCs, and I can't think of any other ones. So yes.
That's
So he's juggling a couple things.
So the man has his own brand of wine. He's opening a bar, but he doesn't do a podcast like we do a podcast.
No,
right?
he actually does do a podcast. He does.
Son of a.
okay. But did he make breakfast for his family this morning? Because I did.
Probably so.
I don't have privy to that information, but I would imagine he makes a pretty solid omelet.
All right, folks, if you haven't figured it out yet, this is a very special episode of Stop Wasting Your Wine. It is the very first time that we are interviewing a wine producer. We have the incredible Anthony Dale on our show. He's going to share with us his wine story. He is a Marine. He is a father of 3. He is the founder of Fatherhood Wines. He is going to be opening a wine bar in D.C. determined to elevate minority and women wine producers. He has his own podcast. He is probably the most impressive human I have ever met in my entire life. Stick around. You do not want to miss this interview. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen. Anthony Dale. All right. So this is it, folks. This is our first official interview here on Stop Wasting Your Wine. Anthony, welcome. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm super excited about being here. I love you all's podcast. So I'm excited about you all tasting the wine today.
I appreciate it. As I say, it's great. It's great to see you again. I hope you don't mind me telling the story. So this is actually the second time I've gotten to see Anthony. A couple weeks ago, I was sitting in my living room getting ready to go out to dinner, and all of a sudden my doorbell rang, and one of my kids was like, "Dad, someone's at the door." And I walk over to the door, and the screen door is closed, but the main door is open, so I can see Anthony. And I'm like, I know this person. Why do I know this person? If I walk over, I'm like, oh shoot, hi. Because Anthony and I never met in real life, but we've been talking back and forth online. And Anthony just happened to be in Jersey and was going to send us the wines for today, anyways, and just kind of dropped him off. And it was really cool, and it was great seeing you in real life.
That is so cool.
How far out of your way did you go? That was awesome.
So I'm from Jersey. So I grew up in Jersey City. My family lives in Hoboken and Bayonne. My niece had a birthday party in Bayonne that night. And so it's like, oh, we're going to be up in Jersey anyway. FedEx and this craziness. I said, let me just drop the wines off. Since we're going to be this close, there's no point in me waiting to drop the wines off if we're going to be there. So yeah,
That's so
I'm
nice.
glad. As I drove away, I said, I hope it wasn't scary. Like somebody just shows up to your house with wine and say, here you go. Right.
I think that's the best. It's
No,
the best
no,
thing in the world. Nobody's ever showed up at my house bringing me wine. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, that is pretty unbelievably cool.
it was a really cool experience too, from the sense of like, this has been something we've been doing for about 6 months now, and a lot of what we've been doing has been online, and so that was kind of like a very cool, like, this is real, we're doing something.
Right.
So it was just very neat to interact with you in real life, so I appreciate it. It was not weird at all.
I like to be, we're a small producer, so I try to be as personal as possible. So being able to see people when we drop off wine is amazing. But yes, I'm glad I was able to make that happen. And I love coming to Jersey, so I was like, oh, this is the perfect opportunity for me to actually drop off this wine. And my brother and them was like, oh, okay, great. Well, we'll see you in a couple of hours when you get back from Hawthorne, because they had never heard of Hawthorne, New Jersey, although we grew up in Jersey our whole time. So
I had never heard of it before you moved there either, Aaron. So
I had never heard of it before I moved there, so it's fine. But it's a very nice little town. Okay,
Nice.
for all the Hawthorne listeners out there, I really like it here. So cool. So I mean, that you mentioned being a small producer, like that's amazing. Can you, like, let's just jump right in. Can you just get into your brand a little bit? Just tell us a little bit more. Like, where did your journey with wine start? Like, where did this all start for you?
Sure. It started, I am 41, so it probably started around 30 some years ago. I grew up in Jersey City, and one thing that we used to do when we got out of school, we didn't have cable, so we came home, and I actually watched what was on regular TV. And one of the shows that was on regular TV was Frasier. So I would come in the house and I would watch Frasier, and you would see him go through the house, grab a glass of sherry, grab some expensive wine, and talk about it. And I associated wine with this prestige, with finally making it in the world, with its elegance. And so I became enamored by wine, quite frankly, because of Frasier.
Mm-hmm.
And then I somewhat journeyed off to the military. I was in the Marine Corps. I like to say the only branch that matters. I learned in combat, both in Fallujah and Afghanistan, and came back home. Well, during that time, I somewhat moonlighted as a bartender, from the base club to Fridays to some fine dining restaurants. And then but in the daytime, I was the chief operating officer. So running around the country, really running large scale operations for a lot of different organizations in corporate America. And about 2 years ago, I woke up and realized I had spent 263,000 miles in the air that year.
Oh my God.
Away from my boy.
Wow.
3 amazing little boys that I love to death. And I was breaking out in hives, right? It's because I was stressed out every single day. And so I said, this is it. Like, I can't do this. It's not worth the time, the money, and everything that I put into it. So I looked at something that was going to be more therapeutic, and something that was going to bring me closer to my boys, and something that was going to allow me to create a legacy within our family. And why was something I continued to have a passion with. So I did all the certifications. So I went through the WSET programs to become a somm. I did the Cornell program and got into the UC Davis program to actually get involved in being a winemaker, right? And then I walked up and said, this is it. I'm going to do this. And I stepped out on faith and said that I want to start a wine brand. I want to do all the things that comes with starting a wine brand. While I didn't know what all that was, quite frankly, but I knew that I wanted to do. And I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but I then said I want to open a wine bar. Then I opened a custom crush facility. So it's all these things that came together, and I really, it has been a journey that I have enjoyed. It keeps me up sometimes at night, but it's something I really enjoyed so far.
I think it's incredible, Anthony, that, I feel like I realized at one point I wanted to get more into wine, and I started drinking more wine. There wasn't even a thought in my brain like I should make my own brand, start making my own wine. I mean, you dove in like head first. I mean, how did you know that was the path for you? What gave you the confidence that this was something that you could that you should and could do. It's impressive.
You didn't watch enough Frasier, Joel. You should have watched more
absolutely.
Frasier.
Yeah, I was watching Seinfeld. I should have been watching Frasier. Yeah.
I will tell you that, and I should have mentioned this earlier. My wine pays homage to my boys, and so our wine brand is Fatherhood Wines. If you look at our labels, each one of my boys are on the labels, and it tells a story about who they are and how they connect to the wine on the back. And I love wine, and I actually started out in the wine club. And I said, "Oh, this is great, right? I like to be around people that drink wine." But then I said, "Hold on, you can make money from this? There's people out there making money from owning wine brands. Oh, let me do this, right?" And I jumped into being a wine brand, right? And I said, "Well, what does it take to be a wine brand?" No one tells you what it really takes, right? You got to go through TTB. You got to get your labels approved. You got to get corks. You got to get all types of things. You got to know what wine bottles are. Like, is it a Bordeaux bottle? Is it this bottle? Like, no one says what any of those things are until you get into it, right? And how you acquire the juice. But I got into it and I started learning all those things, right? But one thing that clicked for me very early on, selling wine bottles is absolutely amazing. There's no money in wine bottles unless you are selling 100,000 bottles a year, right? And so that's why we ventured over to the wine bar, right? Because the money is selling glasses of wine. That comes from right? I can sell a wine bottle for $15, $20. I can sell a wine bottle for $80, right? If I'm selling my glass. So in order for this to be something that I can look up and make profit from, I had to venture into a different realm. But that's kind of what the journey has been, like learning one part of it and saying, okay, what's the next evolution of this?
I mean, at the end, that's amazing too, because it feels like you're coming at this and you have this whole plan. Like, a lot of folks try something and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna sell wine." And you're like, "Nah, I got the wine bottle, I got the branding, I got to open the bar." Like, you got a big social media presence. Like, it's just really cool. And I know you mentioned your branding, but we gotta sit on that, because I gotta say, like, when you walked in and you handed these bottles, and we'll put the pictures of all the bottles up on our Instagram and as we post. My wife starts pulling these bottles out and she's like, "This is the most amazing thing I have ever seen." She literally started crying a little bit. She was like, "Oh my God."
Yeah, the brand is amazing.
You
it really is.
Absolutely nailed it. Like, I know it's like a DB for you, and probably we'll talk more about it, but just from just the marketing and branding, like, it is just such a cool concept, and just it's like immediately starting hitting a home run is must be pretty cool.
Yeah, we've gotten so much love for our labels. We were very intentional. I got to give a big shout out to Destiny, who's in Atlanta, who actually did our labels. But she did an amazing job. And what I did, I said, "Here a picture of our boys, make labels," right? And she took those labels and really embodied everything I wanted from the labels. My son. So I have a 3-year-old Tyson. That is our cab front. And a lot of people, I should stop and say, when you look at that bottle and you look at the label, you'll see that his hand is different on that bottle. That's because my Tyson was born missing 4 fingers from his right hand. So some people think it's an imperfection on the bottle. It's actually not. This is us making sure that we are representative of who he truly is. A lot of people say, "Just put a hand on it, put the whole hand." It's like, no, that's not Tyson. So we made sure that we were being truly representative of who he is. The proceeds from those bottles, we reinvest back into limb difference communities, because we believe that is a community that needs to be reinvested into. But so we have the Tyson, which is our cab front, which is my youngest son. We have the Merlot, which is Noah, which is my most rambunctious son of them all. Then we have the Jaden, which is our pet nap, which is my oldest son. We want to do something different for him because he is the oldest and leader of the crowd. And the one that is my personal favorite is our our red blend. It's not my favorite because all the boys on the label. It's actually my favorite because it's actually the one I like the most. But it's our red blend that I enjoy.
I mean, every aspect of your story, man, it just keeps getting wilder. Like, and I gotta say, like, we're a bunch of UCF guys. I'm not sure if you're aware of like this aspect of UCF, but there's a major program there called Limitless. With Shaquem Griffin, who's a UCF player, is the first man in the NFL to get in with one hand, and just so that whole aspect of your story just like immediately kind of hit with me, because it's been a huge part of like being a UCF night, and just that belief that people go above and beyond and can work for it. Has that been something? Were you guys aware of Shaquem and that story?
I was very aware. We're big in the limb difference community, so he's one that we follow. But there are so many people who when you have a limb difference, people think that limits you. It doesn't.
Mhm.
It allows you to do so many other things. And just at 3, we see how much Tyson is just growing. And so I want to think of his story and think of so many other people out there. It's a community of people that are doing amazing things, and they should get all the acknowledgement, right? Let's not hide who they are, but just give them all the acknowledgement.
Colin, I feel like you had a question earlier, and I totally railroaded you. I want to make sure you.
Yeah, Anthony said he has a custom crush facility, and my wine nerd radar went off. And I know we haven't gotten into the wine yet, but just for my knowledge, can you tell us a little bit about that and what a custom crush facility is?
Sure. So, if you don't own a vineyard, if you just want to be a wine producer, most of your wine is being produced in a custom crush facility. Basically what that is, in many ways, it's a co-op, if you want to think of that concept. So you have a facility where they have a list of vineyards that you can buy the juice from. So if you're looking for a Cab Franc or the Cab Sauvignon or whatever the case may be, they acquire that juice from those individuals. They bring it into the facility. If you're doing a single variety, then that's the facility that's going to do the aging. So you'll see when you walk into a lot of these custom crush facilities, wine in American oak or French oak or some variation of that, or stainless steel. And they're doing blendings for for whatever blend that you want to have. And so custom crush facilities are something that a lot of people are not familiar with. They just think that if you own a wine brand, you own a vineyard. That is actually not true for most wine brands, quite frankly.
I was wondering where your vineyard was in D.C. I'm looking at maps of D.C. and I'm like, I don't know about that.
No vineyard in D.C. But a lot of wine brands, particularly smaller wine brands, they're producing stuff in custom crush facilities.
Yeah, for sure.
And these are co-ops where you can come in and actually blend your wine and get your wine produced. There's a lot of variations of what they look like. Some custom crush facilities do it all, right? You just say, I want a Cab Franc, and they just do everything for you to build a Cab Franc. Others where you have more hands-on, where you're in the vineyard, you're sorting grapes and picking out stems off the machine and doing so many other things. So it just really depends. But for us, we wanted to create a facility here on the East Coast. There's particularly in the DMV area, there's over 500 wineries in the DMV area. But there's only one custom crush facility in the area. And so we wanted to create a space for people to actually come and do their wine, right? Not only receive knowledge around how to make your wine. And so where should you buy juice? Should you buy juice late in harvest season in October? It depends on what type of wine you're making, right? Like if you're trying to make a sweet wine, that may be good for you. But if you're trying to make a dry wine, buying juice late in the harvest season is absolutely the wrong road to go, right? So it's bringing that type of expertise to winemaking, so when should you acquire your juice, where should you get your juice from, and then what type of blending process or trials you should go through. And so we want to do that expertise in our facility. But taking the next step further, we actually want to scale smaller producers. So when I say smaller producers, these are people that are producing 1,000 cases or below in many ways, right? How do we scale the business to be successful? Because if you're not producing large volumes, this is a passion project, because winemaking is expensive. If anybody tells you it's a good business to get into, they lie, because it is an expensive business to get into. And it can cost you a whole lot. So how do we make sure that you may start with 500 cases? How do we scale to 1,000? And how do we scale to 2,000? And that's what we're going to do in our custom crush facility, is actually provide that space. And what I would say, the last part of that is that there are not a lot of places for you to store wine, right? You have to have a specific facility in order to store your wine, to get your license, and do so many other things. And so we're going to be a storage facility. So we have a facility big enough for winemakers to come and actually store their wine and be that logistic hub for them to get it out.
That's awesome. And what's the name of it if people want to look you up?
So it's going to be Fatherhood Wines. So everything we do is
cool.
Fatherhood Wines is what the custom crush facility will be.
Awesome. Very cool.
I'm really excited to try your wines. Before we do that, though, I would love to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit more about the wine bar that you're also going to be opening up on top of Fatherhood Wines, on top of your custom crush facility. You're opening up a wine bar in a couple months, right?
I am, as though I don't have enough to do already, right? But we're opening up a wine bar. It opens on Father's Day, so that's very symbolic with our wine.
Man, through line. Wow. Anthony.
Nailed it.
Wow.
So we opened June 16th of this year. in D.C. on the old historic Walter Reed Hospital campus. So Walter Reed, the old Walter Reed Hospital was torn down, which was the Army hospital. It has redeveloped, and so we have a amazing all glass wine bar that we're excited about that's going to open on that campus. And once again, we're only showcasing small brands, so we're not doing any big, the Gallos of the world, the Miones of the world, and all those things. We're not doing any of that.
Love
The
that.
stuff that you will see in our wine bar is all indigenous type of grapes from all across the country that are small producers. And we're doing something significantly different than what you'll see at other bars. We're doing revenue sharing. So instead of them selling me a case of wine for $100 or $160, whatever their case price is, we're giving them 30% of every bottle sold. And so that means they have a chance to get to 200 to 300% more on the bottles on their wine that they would make from just selling me the bottles. We're hoping that gives them a little bit more money to put back in the business to scale their business, right? And that's a very innovative approach, we think. You know, people say, well, you can make more money if you just buy the cases. I'm not in this only to make more money, although I am trying to make money. Let's be very clear about that. But we are also going to grow this ecosystem that is small minority producers. And so in order to do that, we need to invest in them. And it's not just through scholarships that I know a lot of people do, which are amazing. But we need to put more money in their pockets so they can buy more things and get their own equipment and buy the type of things that's going to help them scale the business to grow bigger.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't want to brush over that thing. So I think you just said it, and I read on is it Père Bar or Père Bar?
Père.
Yep. Père Bar.
P-E-R-E. Yep.
Yeah, that you know, you're specifically featuring both minority owned and women owned wines, correct?
Yes. Yep.
That's fantastic.
It's awesome.
We love that. I mean, there's such like an aspect of like, you know, gatekeeping in the wine world of just like, you know, it is a very specific. I mean, you mentioned Fraser at the beginning. Like Fraser is a very specific, you know, personality type and you know, certain thought that people have, and so like really focusing on, you know, I think groups that don't usually get the credit or the thought when people think about winemaking and wine sales and wine production is just incredible. And like, hats off to you. It's just everything you're doing is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it.
I love the idea because the world of wine is so huge and it's so hard for those little guys to break through and really get, you know, any kind of recognition. So to have a place where they can go and sell their wine and really gain some of that recognition, I think is just a really cool thing for the industry and wine in general. You know, I think we need more of that in wine. You usually only see, like you said, the big stuff is on the shelves. Well, the little guys are making some fantastic wine too. So the fact that you're showcasing them is a really, really cool thing. I love that.
I was just going to say, it almost makes me feel, and you know, this is honestly, and it's, you know, I think we do this as part of the show only because with Aaron being in New Jersey and us being in Orlando, we have to get things that are kind of accessible. But even this conversation really opened my eyes to the fact that there are so many, you know, smaller producers and smaller brands. It almost feels like, I feel like, you know, 10, 15 years ago, the beer landscape, right? Where like when you thought about beer, it was all the big guys. And then all of a sudden the craft breweries and the microbreweries became the hot thing. And people realize, hey, you know, there's a lot more, you know, cooler things happening, more flavorful things that are being created by these people who are putting the love and the care into it. Not that, you know, some big guys are doing that too, but not to the same extent. So, you know, it's such a cool way to highlight the folks that are doing that and are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into making a product with love.
No, I think you're so right. I mean, craft beers led the way, right? There were so many craft beers that came of age. You're like, oh man, this is amazing, right? Like this is great stuff. Why wasn't I drinking this before? But it's hard for those smaller producers to break into the industry, right? And people just don't know about them, right? Like you don't know about the Dukes that's a Jacksonville, Florida beer, right? Like you don't know about these things because it was hard for them to get through the door. And so what we're hoping that we're going to do is introduce people to these grapes to these producers. We have 150 wines on our menu right now, and we're hoping that through a rotation that we're going to show people like, oh, did you try this wine from Mississippi? Did you try this wine from Texas? Did you try this wine from the Eastern Shores of Maryland or out in Chicago? Damien with herbal wines or philosophy wines that's in Maryland, or Nicole who has her wines in Atlanta. Like, there are amazing wine brands out here that people just don't get to see because it's just not something that you see in Target or Trader Joe's or your local liquor. And to be quite honest, it's because it's harder, right? Like, and I'll just, if I can say just a real quick example, you got to put security bonds in every one of these states, right? So if you are a small producer and you got to drop $5,000 just to get your wine into the state before you make any profit, that is hard for people who are making less than 200, 300 cases of wine, right?
For sure.
Absolutely.
And so we're hoping that we can showcase these wines so they can go back home and say, hey, I want this wine. I'm going to go on this producer's website and just order their wines. The more volume they get, the more ability they have to go into these other states and actually break through the door, right? And maybe that'll reduce some of the restrictions, right? But let's not be fooled. These restrictions are in place to keep some of the smaller brands out of these states.
Totally.
Where craft beers led the way, right? They led the way in like getting their stuff into the states, right? And so we're hoping we can play our small part in doing that in the wine industry, quite frankly.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it really sounds like from like point A to point Z, like you've just like thought all these different pieces through to just make it as feasible as possible. And we knew this was going to be a good interview, but like, I don't think we knew how good this was going to be. Like we're just so excited to have you. Like, this is great.
Thank you all.
Man, is it okay if we try some of your wines now?
Please. I would love you all to try some of the wine.
All right.
He read my mind.
So we can start with the Merlot if you're there. So I would love to talk about it. This is a non-vintage wine. It's a 2023 and 2023 grapes. The grapes are from Hagerstown, Maryland. It was aged 14 months in French oak, 2 months in American oak. We think I like to say it's a gateway drug to people who don't like red wine. So if you are not a fan of red wine, you're going to see this is not your traditional Merlot. It's going to be smooth. It's going to have a lot of good aromatics. And it's going to be a good drinking wine in many ways.
Yeah, I noticed the ABV is only 12.5%. Is that a stylistic choice you made to make it kind of lighter and more vibrant?
We did. So we didn't want anything that was too heavy. So the 12.5 is still on the higher side, but it's somewhat, in my mind, mid-range when I think about wines, because I think it's something easier to drink. Like, we didn't want to go 14.5 or something like that. When you get into that, you're getting into liquor, kind of, frankly.
All right, so man, it's we never get to do this with the producer sitting right with us. So, feel free to make fun of us if we get anything completely wrong, Anthony. But Joel, what are you getting on the nose, man?
Yeah, so just, on the nose, just, smells like it's going to be really bright, really nice, getting a lot of cherry in there.
Ton of red fruits. I would totally agree with that. A lot of very red fruit forward. I think the brightness is what surprised me from a Merlot, because usually you think Merlot, you think more ripe fruit, or even sometimes on a super ripe version it can even get into cook. But this smells so light and refreshing and crisp. It has a lot of the Merlot characteristics with the red fruit and stuff like that, but it's not that bold in your face Merlot that you would usually find.
You get a lot of euphonisms from the 2023 grapes that we use, so that's what you're getting, that bright kind of those notes from. Because what we did in this, we went through several different versions of it. We started with more 2023 and less 2022, because the 2022 is going to give you some of that dulled down type of notes. But we thought that the right balance was 70% 2022 and 30% 2023, because it brought out the right freshness out of the grape.
You did mention there's oak on this too, because you get some of that influence as well, but it's really on the nose. It doesn't overtake the fresh fruit. It definitely is a secondary player, which is really nice.
I would say too, like, I think it's kind of cool, being like a super wine novice here, like the concept of mixing vintages, right? Like not just mixing the varietals themselves, but like the years in order to get that right blend is a new concept to me. And so that is really neat, again, to have that kind of level of control to say like, ooh, we like this one a little more and let's go 70-30. That's just really cool.
Very cool. Yeah, and it tastes really nice.
And I was wrong in this. I should say this. It's 70% 2022, 25% 2023, and I'm going to throw a curve at you all. It's 5% Chardonnay.
Oh.
5% Chardonnay. Okay. So what led you to add the Chardonnay? That's a very unique combination.
We wanted to smooth it out a little bit. We thought the Chardonnay was going to give it a smooth kind of weight to it. And so when we added it, it actually worked out. And so we thought, okay, let's add the Chardonnay and see what happens. And what we found is when the Chardonnay got added, that probably because the Chardonnay, if you drink our Chardonnay straight, you'll get more oakiness. So some of that oakiness that you're probably getting is probably coming from the Chardonnay more than anything else.
Okay.
But it also added to the weight of the wine, which was so amazing to us, right? And so that is what we thought was great in that blend.
When you said weight, the fact that the flavors are so crisp and fresh, you necessarily wouldn't expect the weight on the palate that you would, but absolutely that it does add a nice weight to it, and it's a really nice compliment, I think, to the freshness.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, and I was just going to say too, I think you mentioned earlier that, this is the Noah Merlot, and I think you said Noah is your rambunctious son,
Yes.
right? And I think
Yes.
I feel like, and I think this might be what you're going after. I feel like you captured it. Like it's a little unexpected, but it's bright and it's fun, and it's just at the end of the day, also really well balanced and really, really fantastic. So, yeah, I just think that's super cool. Just tying it back to the label.
We love it. When I tell people, it's not traditional Merlot. If you're picking up a bottle of Merlot and you're drinking this, you're not going to get the traditional Merlot out of it, right? Mm-hmm. And that was purposeful, right? I think in this collection, in which you'll see, we have a consistency throughout all the wines that you'll try tonight, is that we wanted to give something that was easy for people who just are not used to red wine. You hear some people like, I don't like red wine. I don't like this. Right? But we wanted something that people can say, okay, I do like red wine a little bit. Tell me more about what this red wine world is. Like, let me get out of these, and please don't judge me when I say this, out of these sugary drinks like Moscato and these juices.
No judgment here.
How do I get into what I would say real wine drinking world? And this is what this year's collection is. Like, introducing people to real wine in many ways. And that starts with us giving them something that's easy on the palate that they can take. And we plan to grow from there, right? Like we plan to be a little bit more adventurous in our future collections, but we think this is a great variety for people who are just not used to drinking red wine.
For sure.
Yeah, no, this is a very, very tasty wine. It's like, it has such a good balance to it, and I'm really loving the structure. And I'm pouring very small glasses right now because, as these guys will tell you, I'll be sitting here talking about the wine, and they're like, Aaron, where'd your wine go? Your bottle is empty. And we got 4 of these bottles to try. Want to get through the whole family, so I have to be very careful because I'm going to put this bottle over here. It is very good.
Very smart. Very good.
I say, so when your sons are old enough to drink wine, are they required to only drink the wine named after them? What happens if they don't like the wine named after them? Do they trade? Are they like... They're mandated for that or their wine for the rest of their life?
This place pays for the college. They got to drink everything that comes to our house, quite frankly. With that being said, as Biggie said, you don't drink your own supply, so that they can't drink up all the wines. We got to sell some stuff.
Yeah.
Right before we came here, we had a wine tasting. So my kids go with me. So they're in the vineyard with me. They're in the winery with me. They're at the wine tastings with me. And so we were just here. My oldest son, Jaden, he was running back and forth to the car, grabbing wine bottles. So I was like, this is what it is. Like, this is your wine. This is how we pay for your college one. So let's go.
Love that.
Man, what a cool way to grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome.
So
cool.
I would say that the next one is a Cab Franc that you should try. You're going to get all the traditional things of Cab Franc. This is our wine that has the biggest bite to it. It is 100% Cab Franc, again, from Hagerstown, Maryland. You're going to get all the black cherry, the black currants. And I like to say, people, when they say black currants, have you ever tried the black currant? Do you even know what this tastes like? But what it says. But all the black fruits in it. You're going to get the spice from it. You're going to get a little bit smokiness from it. I like it. We have a charcuterie board that's coming to the bar that has wild boar on it, roasted wild boar. So I actually have tried it with the wild boar, and I think it's amazing, or like with a green curry. But once again, this one was 15 months in oak, in French oak. We think it's a great wine as a pairing wine that you just sit around. This is for real wine drinkers, though. Let's not be fooled that if you pick this up, you like wine, right?
Definitely.
It has the Cab Franc. I like to give some education to people. Like, this is the pairing grape to allow the wine that people drink that just don't know what it is, right? The Cab Sauvignons, some Merlots of the world, right? Like, people just don't know that this is the pairing grape to all these wines. And if you like them, then you should love Cab Franc because it's the one that started it all, quite frankly, right? So, yeah.
So Cab Franc for me is one of those wines, like one of my like oh shit wines, because it's the first time that I really tasted anything beyond just like wine. So there was that one note in there that I love in Cab Franc, and it's that earthy kind of. It's almost like potting soil. You know, it's like dirt, but dirt in the best way possible. Like it's when I say dirt, I'm not.
Invite a man on our show and call his wine dirt, man. What are you doing?
No, I'm being very complimentary.
In the best way.
and this has that. And I absolutely love that. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love that that little bit of smokiness in there too. As you were saying it, when I was smelling it, I was like, oh yeah, that's going to be really nice. But it's also, it's there, but it's not in any way, shape, or form getting in the way. It's again just a perfect use of that oaking and just really nice, really, really well-rounded Cab Franc.
And, just a little bit about winemaking. Oak can be tricky, right? And so we start out with putting this in French oak. And then somewhere along the way, we thought, oh, let's put some oak chips in it. That was the absolute wrong thing to do. Because if you don't know how to manage oak chips, they will totally destroy your wine. And so we had to go back to the drawing board after we put the oak chips in and start over again. Luckily, we didn't put the whole thing. But, oak and wine is art. I think in many ways, because it's hard to figure out when should you take it out before it gets too much in it, and when should you, or how long you should leave it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's like one of the most exciting things I'm kind of hearing like you talk about is like, adding a little bit more of this vintage, a little bit more of this vintage, or adding the Chardonnay, or adding oak chips, and you're a little bit of a mad scientist in like the creation of your wines. And it's like it's very cool to see it on that like molecular level, on that ground level of really coming up with the flavor profile of your wines. And I have to imagine like when you find a really good one, it must be such a process to then make sure that you're like trying to achieve that similar. So let me ask you that is the goal to try to achieve that similar taste, or do you just kind of have to take what the vintage for that year gives you and do and maybe kind of reinvent the wheel if you can't get the same thing down?
No, we try to be consistent throughout our collection, right? We want people to experience it. I hate when I drink wine, and I'm not going to name any producers, but you go with one wine, like, oh, this is great. And you get something else, and it's like, this is trash. Like, why is it such a difference between these? And they're the same vintage, right? And it's coming from the same vineyard. And it's because there was no consistency in how they made the wine. They were just throwing whatever they had into the bottle, right? And, I'll tell you that we had 2 white wines that we were going to come out with this year. We tried them. It was trash. I'll just be honest with you. It was absolutely trash. And so we pulled them back and said, nope, we're not gonna mess with these this year. We're gonna go back to the drawing board. We're gonna redo it all over again. And I think that's what you do if you are a smart winemaker, because you want people to enjoy your wine. You want people to experience it and say, when I taste that, it is something I love, and I know that whatever I pick up is good. Right.
Nice.
You want people to say, I like this one, but I hate this one. This is not my favorite. And so we try to be consistent with the flavor profiles across all our wines, but still staying true to the characteristics of the grape. And so we want a Cab Franc to taste like a Cab Franc. We want the different varieties to be the same. Taste like who they are, have their own personality, but we also want to be consistent across whatever we provide, because I think that's how you create a loyal customer base and people who actually enjoy your wine and say, this is something I would want to pick up, and no matter what the wine or the varietal is.
And I was going to say, on varietal characteristic, if you want to taste what a Cab Franc is supposed to taste like, try this wine, because this is Cab Franc. This totally brings me back to that like, oh crap moment. This kind of wine right here is why I fell in love with wine. So it's really it's fantastic, and it's so varietally Cab Franc-y that it's a fun wine. It's really good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It is one of my passion projects, and I love Cab Franc. And you'll see Cab Franc is consistent across the collection that we have. So we're going to go to the red blend next to have Cab Franc. Because majority Cab Franc is actually 80% Cab Franc. And then we have the Pet Nat Rosé, which is 100% Cab Franc. So we stick with Cab Franc because I think it's a rider when it comes to varietals. It's not something people know, but it's something if you have.
Absolutely. So Cab Franc's super underrated. The wine that you can just find a ton of value out of and find absolutely delicious wines. And this is one of them.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Well, and I was going to say too, I've known Colin for a very long time. This guy doesn't mince words. I just want you to know too, and he will be very honest. So, he is. Everything he's saying is very true. Everything we're all saying, but just yeah, it's high praise too, coming from Mr.
That
Colin
wine
over
got me absolutely jazzed up.
Yeah.
Absolutely jazzed up. That's a fantastic wine.
Well, you're gonna be excited about our blend because I love it today.
Nice.
I love
All
it like no tomorrow.
Go.
And so our blend is a Cab Franc, Cab Sauvignon, a Petit Verdot, and a Merlot blend. Non-vintage again. I love it. Like I literally drink this wine all the time. I should stop drinking it because I'm not going to be able to sell the wine if I keep on drinking it this way. But it is something that I think that if you're just hanging out with your friends, you can drink, right?
Oh yeah.
People say, well, what do you pair it with? I can tell you 1,000 different things to pair it with, but I like it by itself. Like it is a standalone type of wine for me that I drink often. And I think it's just great. And so there's different agings in there. So as I mentioned, the Cab Franc was aged 15 months in French oak, and the Merlot was 14 months with in French oak, but it is absolutely amazing wine. I think it has the characteristics. It's very, very aromatic. You're gonna get a lot of grapefruits that are coming through there. It's a medium body wine that's going to that you'll have, and that's going to last a little bit. It's just something I love to death. I can't speak too much about it because I love. The only grape in there that is not from Maryland is the Petit Verdot. That is from Middleburg, Virginia, actually. And so that is one that we have a Virginia grape in.
And the blend is also just fantastic. It's a delicious wine. And I think what I like about all of these wines, and one of the 3 notes that you notice, is they're all fruit forward, which is the kind of wine I like to drink. You get that fruit. There's a lot of other stuff going on in there as well with the oak influence, but fruit is absolutely the star in all of these wines, which is a really nice touch.
And once again, it's meant for people who just don't like red wines. Like some people get red wines and it's like, I hate this. It doesn't. Yeah. It's dry. We didn't want that. We didn't want that to be the case.
Yeah. And a lot of times you just get oak. Like you said, oak is so difficult, and a lot of people do it so poorly that like the fact that you're able to bring the fruit characteristics and the varietal characteristics forward, but still integrate that oak is a really nice touch.
I was just gonna say, I feel like you either get heavy oak when you're trying to do something and you're trying to highlight something. You go heavy oak, you go really, really fruit forward. This is like a fastball right down the middle of the plate. It's just like it's so there, it's so accessible, and I immediately thought I would want to have a case of this, and this would be the wine that I would bring, to my friends' houses, sort of thing, and just everybody would be enjoying it for sure.
No, I was gonna say, I think like, we kind of joke on the show every now and then. We're like, is this wine a thinker or a drinker, or a thinker and a drinker, like whatever? And I really like about this blend that, like, from an aromatic standpoint, it's a really aromatic, like full smell, and I was like, oh man, like this is gonna be a really complicated taste, and then you taste it, it's just this really nice, really smooth, just like a really approachable wine. And I was like, oh man, like that's a really cool balance to find between just like this really aromatic wine and this really smooth drinker.
It's complex. It took us a while to get that right, but it's balanced, and we are hoping that that we keep that balance right. It's just such a good drinker for me. Once again, I love this wine. I mean, it is my favorite. So next, what you all have is the Pet Nat Rosé. And I like to tell a little story about this. Everybody that jumps into wine is doing rosé. It is the rosé crave that everybody, like if you're a new wine person, you say, I want to make a rosé. I want to make a rosé because it's rosé all day and frosé and all these things. we want to set ourselves apart. We wanted to provide something that was very unique to the wine world, and Pet Nats are unique. These all natural wines that really showcase the old school style of wine was, right? So there was none of these by-traits and all these other things that are thrown in the wine. They just threw the wine in the bottle and just let it go, right? And so this is what our Pet Nat is. So everything is done in the bottle. What you all have there has been in bottle now for 3 months. When we started out, it was very cloudy. But what you have now is something that has been somewhat refined over time. And very much the yeast is probably deactivated when you all open them or chill them down. The ABV on the back of the bottle says 12.5 right now. is probably way above that, quite frankly, because the yeast kept on going.
Thank you for telling me that. That's important for me to know as I continue into my evening. Thank you.
Warning.
So it's gonna have a kick to it, but I love it. You're gonna get notes of grapefruit, maybe some peach, a little bubble gum, which is surprising. It came out in the mallet process, kind of. But so you're gonna get all these things in that wine, and it's been something that people, when they try it, they love it. And I always like to say, pet naps are one of those things, either you hate it or you like it, right? And so you have to make the decision what you like. But we love it to death. It's what we call a patio pleaser. It's something that you can sit on your patio and just drink.
We call that a certified porch pounder.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's what we call it here on this show.
It has a little funk to it, but I mean, it's great. I enjoy it, really. And this is my oldest son. I like to tell that my oldest son is leader of the pack, and he needed something different, and so we created the pet nap. We didn't want him to be like everything else.
And
Love it.
I mean, the thing I learned to say too, because I saw that. So the pet net has the, and for the listener at home that doesn't know this, like I did not know this 30 minutes ago, the pet net actually has like the beer bottle cap kind of top.
Mm-hmm.
And the reasoning for that is the fermentation in the bottle creates so much pressure. Is that correct?
Yes. And so the cap that you have there, we couldn't put a cork. We would put a cork on that thing with a pop right out, right? Because if you opened it recently, you probably saw it fizz up kind of when you opened it, right?
Yes, it did. Thank God Colin warned me ahead of time.
I'm basically wearing my pet net. I'm not much of a pet net drinker, so it was actually the first pet net I'd ever opened, and it was an experience. I'll say that.
It was. I try to warn people. It's like when you open that bottle, it's going to give you everything that champagne is, but more, right?
Absolutely.
But yes, the cap, because corks just won't work in many ways. I mean, you can try cork. There's versions, and what we have on that bottle is all natural corks. So what you look at that cork, and a lot of people don't realize all our corks are all natural. Like we want things that are going to breathe and go through. And so we have all natural corks on our bottles to try to get more oxygen in the bottle as much as we can into that process. So
the pet net is actually, like I said, I'm not much of a pet net guy, but I love the way it smells, and it actually, I don't dislike it, which from me is quite a high compliment, because I've actually never had a pet net that I like.
I'm loving it.
And one thing that I'm wondering over here too is, I haven't had a lot of pet nat. I do love champagne. I love bubbles. So I'm really enjoying this. And one thing I noticed though too is it's almost like a little thicker of a mouthfeel, almost not creamier, but just like a little thicker. Is that just kind of a result of the fact that so much is happening in the bottle, so much fermentation, so much activity is happening in there that it kind of leaves that feel?
Yeah, such a great point. It's because the yeast, when you open that bottle, the yeast is still very active, most likely, right? And so that thickness that you're getting is from the yeast still being very present in the bottle. The longer that bottle ages, the it will lighten up more, right? And so if you saw that bottle maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago, it would look super cloudy, and if you were drunk, it would have been super thick. It would almost like we're drinking milk in many ways, right?
Gotcha.
But as that process has played itself out, the color in the bottle is lightening up, and the yeast is calming down more. And so once again, the longer it stays, it won't be as heavy on your palate, right? But quite frankly, that's what pet naps are, right?
Sure.
And so you want it to be heavy. When you get to the point where it's a light pet nap, it's not good. It's just not good, because it means it's gone too far. It's done everything it can. The yeast has died off, and now your wine is getting corrupt, because rosés are hard and pet naps are hard. They corrupt very easily, right? So that wine can get very bad very quickly. And once it gets to that point, nothing you can do. It's unstable, right? Like pet naps and rosés are just unstable wine.
Sure.
And so you have to be very careful. And what we did 48 hours on skin with this wine. And so that's why you see the color that you have there. So that's, you have more of a pinkish color there because we left it up there a little bit longer. But that facilitates some instability in the wine. And so you have to be very careful with the pet naps in many ways.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, honestly, this is opening my eyes to pet nat and making me want to explore more. This is great.
I mean, overall, like And it's such an amazing experience. Like you said, not to, you would drink these in 4 months. Like these things wouldn't last 4 days in my house. All right. Like this is just, and I want to be like, I want to be 100% honest because I think it says a lot. Like, before you came on, like, we're like, all right, he's a small private producer. Like, we don't know what this is going to be. We don't know. Colin was like, I don't know, man. If it sucks, I'm going to tell him it sucks. It's just like, and then we open this up and like, I just want to name for our listeners, like how good this is.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to not just be able to say like the wines are good, but the whole story, like the whole, everything you've been working on from just, accessibility for, the minority and women owners, the work you're doing for, limb different children with your son. Just like, man, I can't even think of all the things. The what was it called? The
Custom Crush.
Thank you. Can you edit me to sound like less of an idiot, Colin? Thank you.
I will not. I will not.
Yeah, it's the custom, the crush and the profit sharing. Like everything you're doing is not only thoughtful about your own company, but really making sure you're. Oh my God, you're making it better every second. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Love that.
That's awesome.
Was that Tyson?
That was Tyson. Yes.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he had the same look in his face of my 3-year-old being like, "Hey," right? And we didn't even, man. And last thing, we didn't even talk about the podcast. You have the Vino Dads podcast. We would love to be on someday because we are all Vino Dads. Like we all got our own little ones, and like, how are you doing that on top of everything else?
Exactly.
That has been a struggle for me, if I'm honest. Like, we did one episode and we were supposed to be recording every 2 weeks.
It was a great episode.
It was a great episode. It was.
We had Matt from Boy Crew Wines, which is another great producer in Maryland. But we're going to start back up in a couple of weeks. But I wanted the space for dads. Like, nothing against mothers. They're amazing. They do amazing jobs every single day. But we don't get the nuggets like they do, right? And I want a space where we can be honest and upfront about the things that we're dealing with, about our mental health, about what it takes to be a father and really parenting. Because I think that's important, right? I'm a dad of 3 kids, and I call them all terrorists because in the military, sleep deprivation was a form of torture, and I feel like that's what they do to me every day.
Man, you are.
I think it's important to tell our story, right?
Yeah.
Dude, not only did my 3-year-old wake up this morning at 6 o'clock before his light alarm goes off, the light turns green at 6:45. He woke up at 6 and then started yelling for the other one. And, hold it! We're like running in his room. We're like, you go back to sleep and don't wake him up, and I'm going back to bed. And they are little terrorists.
They are.
Yep.
Right? They are. They're terrorists. You love them, and you want the best for them. So the Vino Dad podcast is really dedicated to telling Dad's story. I think that as fathers, we have a story to tell. I like to say we're not just babysitters. It's not daddy daycare. We play an active part in our children's lives, and we should talk about that. And we can talk about the things that we have. We have Men's Mental Health Month coming up in a couple of months. And I think that we all have our own challenges, and we just don't get to share those a little bit and be around other guys and talk about what that looks like, right? And so that is what the podcast is dedicated to doing. I'm going to get another episode up soon. But I'm really excited about that because that has been a passion project of mine for many years. I should say that when I started along this journey, my wife said, you should do a political podcast. I don't know if I shared this earlier, but I'm also elected official in D.C. So I represent part of D.C. As a commissioner. But she said you should do a political podcast.
Jeez.
Nope. I'm going to do a podcast about that, quite frankly. So,
Anthony, you are the most impressive person that's ever been on the show, and I'm including us 3.
Oh God, by far, yeah.
So, man, geez, with that being said, Anthony, we've kept you on for an hour, man.
Yeah.
We
Taking up too much of your time. Thank you so much.
We love hanging out with you. Before we let you go, man, we talked about the podcast, we talked about Fatherhood Wines, we talked about Pure Bar. Is there anything else that you would want our listeners to know? If someone wanted to get their hands on your wine, how would they do that?
Sure. No, I think I'm doing enough. I think that is absolutely enough for me right now. But I would say that we're excited about this journey that we're on right now. If you would love to be a part of it, you can get our wine at www.fatherhoodwines.com. Follow us on social media, Fatherhood Wines, or Urban Wine Guys handle that I go under on Instagram. Would love you all to be a part of this journey. I try to share every aspect of it, from construction of the wine bar to how we make wine sales, because I think it's important for people to know about this industry that want to get into it. So thank you all for having me here tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you all enjoyed the wine. I wouldn't have been mad if you told me that you hated it. But
no, they're really like
great.
They're honestly fantastic wines. They really are.
And I would say to you, Anthony, we said that at the time. We're like, we're not going to do our like ratings. It's weird with the producers sitting there, like, and we do a weird, like, is the waste of your wine, it's a wine that you put out on the kitchen table. And I would just say, like, 100%, these are all wines that I would put out on the kitchen table, like, if we had folks over, not just as like, they're good wines to taste, but the story and everything you put into it. Like, this is such like a center of a conversation. Man, I would just be so excited. I am definitely going to order your wines from you in the future.
Sure.
If you'll have us, I will be there as soon as you guys open on Father's Day. I would love to take a trip out to see the bar. And this, and this is a certified porch pounder for sure.
I agree.
What did you call it?
I was going to say patio pounder, but I wanted to keep it PC.
No, you're good.
Patio pounder, CPP, all the stamps. Yeah, 100%.
Well,
100%.
I definitely want y'all at the bar. We should have you all on the podcast. This is what this community is, right? Us getting to try different wines and learn about different things, right? So thank you all. I really appreciate this time. I'm glad you once again enjoyed the wine, and I'm super excited about the opportunity about being here today. So thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming, and come back anytime.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, guys, man, I know we had to let him go because he is a father of 3 and he had stuff to do, but man, I just wanted to hang out with that guy forever. That was
all around
probably the coolest person.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I have to go because I have to do things with my life now because I feel like I might be behind the ball a little bit.
Before we go though, I want to mention, I don't think we mentioned this, but all of his wines sell for $25, which is an incredible value. Incredible value based on what we just tried. So check him out, fatherhoodwines.com. Buy some of his wines.
Yeah, you can order him there. He ships to all 50 states. And if you're in the D.C. area, he's opening up on Father's Day. How brilliant is that?
It's perfect. Marketing genius.
Yeah.
Holy cow. So go check him out. Order his stuff. I'm going to be ordering. I mean, he was so kind to send us his wine, and I will be drinking all these bottles over the next couple days. But I will be ordering from him again because not only does he deserve our business because his wine is good, he deserves our business because he is just
awesome,
doing good work.
Yeah, he's really trying to build up the independent wine community and do a lot of great things there. So definitely a guy that we want to support and love everything he's doing.
Absolutely. So, man, if you're listening to us this far, thank you so much. Thank you for following along. Please support us. Please support Anthony and his work. If you want to engage us a little bit more online, Colin, how can folks connect with us on the interwebs?
Yay, my favorite part of the show. You can find us on Instagram at Stop Wasting Your Wine. You can check out our website, stopwastingyourwine.com. And those are the 2 best places to see us. That's all I got.
What about Facebook?
We're easing off of Facebook.
Those are the 2 best places to see us.
Thank you for joining us for an incredible episode of Stop Wasting Your Wine and a wonderful interview with Anthony Dale. More great episodes to come. More great interviews coming up. We're very excited. We have a couple more guests. I'm not going to spoil it, but
Stay tuned.
if you've been around for a while, thanks for hanging out with the evolution of this podcast. And if you're new, there's more great things to come. Thanks for hanging out with us.
And remember, stop wasting your wine.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.